8. This is a Good Morning Quad Cities update.
Good morning, Quad Cities. It's 8:56, and I'm meteorologist Andrew Stutzke. We are tracking some clouds this morning, giving way to some sunshine this afternoon. Overall, a really decent day ahead of us. Temperatures headed for the mid-50s. We'll get a little bit warmer as we get to near the tail end of the week. 60s returning by Friday. Don't forget, we still have an opportunity for a few showers later on Saturday. Sunday will be your weekend's best preliminarily. Also, don't forget, we are just minutes away from a new episode of Ask Andrew Live. You can find that on the WQAD 8 Plus app on your smart TV. That begins at 9 o'clock. A couple of things we'll be covering today. Why water storage is so important this time of year. Has the recent rain put a dent in the drought? And we have some new tropical trouble in the Gulf of Mexico. A brand new hurricane sent to enter that region, and another area of disturbed weather not too far off to the east. We'll see just how busy this hurricane season has been so far and what's yet to come. Plus, are you curious about when we'll usually see our first snow of the season? I've got the statistics and the numbers for you and a little prediction of my own. We'll track all of that and more when you join us for Ask Andrew Live, coming your way in just 2 minutes from now on the WQAD 8 Plus app. I'll see you there. And a good Wednesday morning, Quad Cities. It is 9 o'clock, and you know what that means? It is time for
Ask Andrew.
That's right.
Live.
Live. Yes. And those of you watching right now, consider yourselves an elite group of WQAD News 8 viewers, because this is the first episode of Ask Andrew Live that is being streamed exclusively on the 8 Plus app.
Just on the 8 Plus app.
Just for you. So feel special.
Feel special. And you can still text us that same number.
Yes.
I haven't memorized the number yet.
You haven't memorized it yet?
I got to get that.
I'm almost
Is it on the
getting
screen?
there.
You see it down there?
Yes.
See, it's been a couple weeks since I've been here. It's 309-304-0888. And you can still text us those questions, just not on Facebook, but text it away. And we'll answer all that we can.
We are so excited. So, by the way, in case you don't know, meteorologist Andrew Stutzke alongside.
Weather anchor Peter Warner.
Yes, it's so excited to have somebody back here with me. We think we've had 3 episodes where I've been all by myself, and I'm like, guys, where did everybody go? So what have you been up to?
Well, I've been helping out with James. James had some PTO, a lot of PTO.
Oh, I mean, my goodness, the man's been here 25 plus years, so.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been covering him from Monday through Wednesday, so typically I've just, been sleeping, really honestly, throughout
Sleeping
the Ask Andrew. You gotta sleep at some point.
You do.
At some point, you gotta get some sleep.
And those are some late nights.
They are.
They can really, really go late, especially if you got sports on or something else
Every
is on.
Saturday, we're on more like 10:45. It's always a late night edition of News 8 at 10. We like to joke.
Goodness. But how do you, so this has been kind of your first longer stretch of the weeknight shows.
Yes.
How have you felt? How is it different than the weekend?
It's much more active, I would say. That's kind of the big difference is you have a lot more shows, because on the weekend we just had the 2 at 5:30.
That's right.
And the 10. And then on the weekdays, you got the 4, 5, 6, and the 10. So it's a lot more active, but I love it. It's been really fun to interact with the other anchors.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun to get to know them, work with them a little bit more, and also just kind of develop my skills more, because I'm still a little bit new at this, and it's always good to practice. I got to do some severe weather coverage, some live on the WQAD apps for the first time, just me. So that was very fun, and I loved it.
And I love that you guys did that little bit of severe weather coverage on the Plus app, because that's kind of where a lot of this is going to be heading. There's going to be times where we have storms that come through. They may not be gangbuster storms, or they may not be causing a lot of damage, but we want people to know what's going on because we track storms. And instead of interrupting the on-air signal, we can just go to the Plus 8 app and say, you know what, we're going on the air on the Plus 8 app, track the storms with us live. So we love that. We'll talk more about that as we go throughout the morning here. A reminder, because we are exclusively on the 8 Plus app, the WQAD 8 Plus app, you got to text us your questions. It's 309-304-0888. We're not going to be able to see those on Facebook because we're obviously not streaming there right now like we did before. So 309-304-0888. And I've always heard 3 times, 309-304-0888. You got it?
I think I got it now.
Okay. I always remember the 0888.
That's easy. We're channel 8.
Yeah, exactly.
Storm Track 8.
That one is not hard to remember, but it's the numbers before it that always throw me for a loop.
3 and 0, though.
309
304
0888. There's 2 pairs of 30s in there.
That's easy.
One's a 9, one's a 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Get it. Got it
too hard.
ingrained.
Yeah.
So we're going to go over some top weather stories, some stuff happening not only here but across the globe. That's going to give you some time to formulate those questions and get them in. And then our awesome kind of side producers, if you will, on the digital team and everywhere else, they're going to gather those questions, push them to us here, and we will start answering them. Remember, we're going to keep it weather related only. Don't make it weird. It is a live show.
Stick to the weather.
You got to stay family friendly. Who knows who's watching this? My grandma could be watching, you know? Is it something you would ask in front of my grandmother?
I hope
Remember
not.
that.
I would
exactly.
hope not.
So yeah, we'll get to your questions coming up in just a second. Let's talk a little bit about weather, what's going on locally. And I'm actually going to get a chance to answer a question that we didn't get a chance to this morning because we had so much breaking news with election coverage. We had to kind of ask Andrew off to the side to get all this room in for that. So that's where I'm going to begin, and I'll start with that question that I didn't get a chance to answer on air this morning, and then we'll kind of divvy up the rest of what's going on here. So this is the question that I got, and it was sent in from Gail in Joy, Illinois, saying, why is it important to get the water into the ground now in the fall versus the spring? Great question, because even in the spring we're saying, well, you know, spring flower or spring or May, what is it, May? Something showers bring, April showers bring May flowers.
Yes.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank goodness we have people in my ear that can tell me what I'm doing here. You can tell it's a Wednesday. So here's why. So when we talk about the soil in the ground in the summer, yes, it is able to absorb water, but you have to remember, because the sun is strong, we get a lot of evaporation of that water out of the ground during the summer months. So not only is it important that we keep up on rainfall during the summer, we like to see a little bit of a surplus because we're losing moisture from the evaporation of the sun. Why do we need to get as much water into the ground right now? Well, as soon as that ground freezes, it doesn't matter whether it snows or whether it rains. None of that water content is going to get into that frozen ground until we get to the spring when everything thaws out. So the more water we can get in the ground right now, that is not only water storage in case we get dry next spring, but it's also water storage for your wintertime plants. A lot of us have those permanent plants in our yard, and those trees, they need a drink of water too. This is their source of moisture over the winter when that water cannot penetrate the ground because it's frozen. So that's why we want to get rid of this drought, especially before we head into the end of December and into January when the ground will typically freeze. We've had a really nice rain over this past weekend. I loved how this came in. Nice soaking, gentle rain. A lot of you more than 2 inches worth of rain. You were saying, I think, Walnut took the top spot in our area, right?
So from Monday at 7 a.m. to Tuesday at 7 a.m., Walnut took the top spot in the area, just around 1.25 inches.
Yeah, and that was impressive. And I also love that we didn't have to deal with severe weather. and we didn't have to deal with flooding. So this was the perfect scenario. If we could honestly get like 4 more of these once every week for the next 4 weeks,
that would be ideal.
The ground would be perfect. We'd be in a fantastic shape and the drought would be gone. A couple of you have been curious, how has this, fluctuated the numbers in terms of, have we grown a surplus? Has the deficit gotten worse, better? Here's what I show. Now, if you're on the Illinois side of the river, it's worse. You look at the seasonal deficit, that's what's gotten us in trouble right now with the drought at 3.45 inches in the hole. But you look at the Iowa side, you're kind of in a little bit better shape right now. You've got more of a surplus for the year. You still have a deficit for the season, but it's not nearly as bad as what's going on in the Illinois side. The bottom line is all of these numbers are heading in the right direction. We are moving where we need to be moving. We'll get an update to this map tomorrow morning, by the way. Do I expect a lot of improvement? Not really, because the map is a week behind. It's not going to count what we just did this weekend. So don't be, expecting to come back here tomorrow and seeing all these colors wiped off.
No, it'll take time. I think in 2 weeks, that's when we could be seeing a little bit more improvement.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, the next 2 weeks, you're going to see a lot of improvement on this map. Another thing that's going on right now, Peter, is the tropics are back alive after a little break.
And you know what's crazy? We actually just got a question from Tom in Kiwani.
Yes.
Perfect timing, Tom.
Yes.
Perfect. How far in advance can meteorologists accurately predict hurricanes, and what tools do you use to track their paths?
That is a great
Fantastic question.
Yeah, so you may recall earlier this spring, it was right around, I would say late spring, sometime in May, the National Hurricane Center put out their hurricane forecast for the Atlantic. Usually about a time frame of 3 to 4, sometimes 5 months, you can get a good feel for the season.
Yes.
Yeah. You look at several things, La Nina, El Nino, are we neutral? What's the temperature of the water look like in the Atlantic?
Yes.
You can get a pretty good range as to what's going to happen. And that's what the Hurricane Center does, is they put out ranges.
Yes.
They said X number of storms between this time and this time, X number of hurricanes, X number of major hurricanes. And it looks like all indications are their prediction this year was pretty spot on.
It's pretty spot on. They said it'd be slow early because there's that Sahara Desert issue you saw with the sand. That was kind of slowing it down earlier in the year. But as that kind of cleared up, we saw that forecast for later in the season, around mid-season. That's what we've been seeing. It's still a little bit later in the season, but we have a couple storms to talk about in the tropics right now.
We do, actually. There's one brewing right now, and that is Raphael. I love this name.
Raphael. It's one of my favorite names on the list this year. It's one of my favorite names on the list this year. And speaking of how can we forecast where they're going, so it's called that cone. That's actually called a spaghetti model. So the cone, within the cone, there's a spaghetti model. So all the different types of forecast computerized models, that's the range that they're going at that end of the cone. So they're all kind of following that similar path within that smaller portion of the cone. But where they actually end up, models are sending it all over the place. As you can see here, look how widespread that end of the cone is. It's all the way up from the Louisiana coast out to just south on the coast of Texas, on the Gulf, even potentially out into Mexico. Yeah, there you can see those spaghettis. So it's kind of all follows just what model has been the most accurate this year. I believe I've seen a lot of, the GFS has been pretty accurate this year. The American model has been kind of what they've been leaning towards, at least from a lot of meteorologists I've seen online and I follow and keep up with. But this one, it's all over the place, kind of, you could say. Yeah,
you've got one model going into Florida, and we do not expect that to happen, by the way. No. Another one going into Louisiana, and another one taking it into Mexico. I agree with you when you say the GFS has been a fantastic model. The GFS, which is the American model, usually does really well with hurricanes. There's a new one, a new version of the European that uses artificial intelligence. That one has been performing extraordinarily well. But I'm glad you brought up the spaghetti plots, because or spaghetti models. That's what we're looking at here. This is the raw model data, where it thinks Raphael is going to track. And you can see why that cone is so huge, why it stretches from Mexico all the way up to New Orleans as we get out to late in the weekend. The National Hurricane Center is counting for all that uncertainty. Does it curve up and go to New Orleans, or does it curve back down and go to the Gulf or go into Mexico? That's the question.
That is the question. And that's kind of why they have those conal projections, we like to call them, ahead. And as it moves on, again, they're updating it. I'd say probably about good forecast update about every 6 to 12 hours.
Yes.
That's typically when we see the biggest updates. The 12 hours have the most wide range updates, but every 6 hours we can get some more smaller updates, I guess you could say, as well with these systems.
And what was I think there was a second part to that question too. Did we cover that part?
What tools do you use to track their paths? So
Okay.
as explained, the conal projections there,
Yes.
and then how can you predict them beforehand?
Perfect.
So we got that one done.
Yeah. Hurricane Hunter's a big part of that too.
That's huge, yes, the hurricane hunt.
The more data you can get out of that hurricane, the more accurate the forecast will be.
Yeah. It's great. Great to study. We have another question, or should we break down hurricanes a little more, or do you want to go into another question?
Go ahead, yeah. We'll take them.
Christina from Davenport asks, we had some strong winds recently. Are rural areas hit harder by wind gusts than urban areas since there are fewer buildings and barriers?
Yes, that is an absolute yes.
Yes.
And this is actually something I talked about, I believe it was last summer or last fall, where we had that deadly dust storm that happened in downstate Illinois, kind of just outside of Springfield. That was on Interstate 55, I believe. That was a prime example of the power of wind in an open area. We talked about how way back several years ago, there were shelter belts that were installed. I believe this was probably around the World War II timeframe. And what the shelter belts were those lines of trees that you see on the edge of fields.
Yes.
That was supposed to kind of help contain the wind and keep it from blowing dust all over the place. Well, it's the same scenario in a downtown.
Yes.
You know, if you're living in Chicago, there's usually a little less wind, except with Chicago, you have so many tall buildings, you get that funnel.
It's funnels between the buildings, and it can become very dangerous. You can see that with Houston, too, when they've had those systems move through there. And just the last couple of years, some of those downtown buildings, even 50 stories up, those windows were just getting shattered just because those winds were so strong.
Yeah, and it can accelerate that.
Exactly.
At times, too. Now, where we live, you know, you go to downtown Davenport, we have a few tall buildings, same thing in Moline.
Yes.
That doesn't really create a wind tunnel, if you will, but it does tend to slow down the wind a little bit when you're downtown.
It helps it just a little bit. And yeah, any urban area too, just because there's even just smaller buildings and just a little bit more trees and just a neighborhood setting will slow it down as well.
Yeah, and it's amazing the difference. I mean, if you know somebody that's lived out in the country or you live out in the country yourself, you know that even on the calmest day, you're going to have some type of a breeze that's going to come through there. So no surprise there. And if you're curious about that shelter belt that I was just talking about, this is what it was. So what happened is in the 1930s, more than 200 million trees were planted in the center part of the country. And again, what that was to do is supposed to act as a wind buffer to slow down the winds so that we wouldn't have a repeat of the Dust Bowl, which of course was deadly and really had a huge impact on the economy. This was the problem, though. We discovered that a lot of these trees, of course, are now more than 100 years old. I mean, we're talking it's 2024, so this was almost 100 years ago. So now what the government is trying to do, and what some other organizations are trying to do, is reestablish these trees so that we don't have a repeat of the Dust Bowl. But if you ever go out into the country, and I have noticed this all over the place, especially around here, you'll see a house that's in the country, and it's got pine trees surrounding it most oftentimes. And what that is it's acting as a wind buffer to slow that down.
I was going to bring that up because, again, as many of you guys know, I moved here to the Midwest.
Yes.
But I have tons of family up here in the Midwest, up in Dixon and surrounding areas, Chicago. And I would always ask my dad, why are there so many trees? And that's exactly why he told me. That's like something I kind of learned when I was younger, too. It's not something you typically think about.
No, not at all. And you know, you being from Phoenix, you know about haboobs.
We know about haboobs.
You know about those dust storms. And you know, from the limited time I've been in Phoenix a few times in my life, I don't think they really have a way to control those really, because it's so, you're talking about desert.
You're talking about desert.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of mountain ranges. Phoenix is kind of surrounded by a circle of mountains, which kind of helps it slow down a little bit. But when we see our storms out there, they come from the southeast where there's no mountain range to block it. And in a lot of the backyards, there's some trees, again, there's urbanization, but it's not its tall rising buildings. It's very spread out land in Arizona, so that's where we get those haboobs so strong. We've seen up to 5 mile tall haboobs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They look really scary.
They're really scary, but yeah, imagine a dust wall 5 miles tall, just moving in on your hometown.
That is absolutely frightening. That's a great question, though.
It is.
I'm glad you were here for that because you know about that too. You know what the wind does. So.
That's what started my love for weather.
Yeah.
My grandfather teaching me all about it.
I love it. I love our stories that we have in the weather
best
community.
part,
They're
right?
so cool. Yeah.
So fun. We got another question from Jackson from Anawan. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. I'm still learning some of your hometowns names.
You nailed it.
I'm still learning some of the names, guys, and I apologize if I ever butcher them at all. I'm still trying to make sure I get them all down proper.
You got it.
How does the drought that we had impact our weather?
So it impacts it in a big, big way. When you're talking drought, it impacts it in several different ways. One is your temperatures. You're going to expect to see warmer temperatures, and that's what we saw. If you look at the temperatures, and I'm going to see if I can dig up this graphic that I kind of keep up to date as we go month to month here, you're going to notice that indeed, when we got into drought this fall, the temperatures have been warmer. Give me a second, and I'm going to see if I can dig this up, because I know it's in here. In fact, it's right there. I have not updated this for the end of October, but look at that. Once we got into September, look at what happened with the average temperature. It went up by a degree, almost 2 degrees warmer than normal. Now remember, July and August, we were pretty wet.
We were pretty wet.
I mean, we had a good amount of rain then. We didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, anytime you get dry, you're going to tend to see warmer than normal temperatures. You can have a higher chance of a heat wave. The other thing too, believe it or not, is that you can actually get what we call a negative feedback from the dry ground that limits additional rainfall. Unless you get some kind of a big push of Gulf moisture or a really strong cold front, you can actually limit the amount of rain because there's nothing to evaporate from that dry ground. So
keeps it up. I'm trying to pull up the data for October right now as we go through this, so I can tell you guys just how much warmer we were than normal. So our average high, so the daily high, they took the average of that for the month of October, was 72.7.
That seems warmer than,
Do you want to make a guess what our average high is supposed to be historically?
I'm going to guess mid-60s.
64.8.
Oh,
right on the dot.
It.
But yeah, we were over 8 inches, or just about 8 inches, 7.9 inches, 7.9 degrees warmer than our average for the month of October for the highs of the day.
So if I were to put an arrow on this graphic for October, this would say 7.9 degrees.
That's this is for the highs or the general temperatures?
General temperature.
So that's just for the highs.
Oh, that's still impressive.
That's still impressive.
That is still
7.9 degrees warmer for our daily highs than we typically are for the average of the month of October.
That's crazy. Does that say the average temperature, or is it just the high?
It says the average lows, and so we were just on track for the lows, which is interesting. We were just 0.3 degrees warmer for the average low for the month of October compared to historically, but the highs were significantly warmer.
Okay.
So something to just keep an eye on.
I mean, I knew October was warm, but I was like, wow, I didn't think it was that warm.
I know. Yeah, let me do that math real quick. Let me pull out the calculator.
He's going to punch some numbers in there real quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, the negative feedback, you can limit rain chances. Did you know actually in drought conditions too, you can have a quieter severe weather season as well? Yeah. That is something that we've seen actually in the last 10 years. Remember I did that story a few years ago about Tornado Alley kind of transitioning a little bit further east? I wouldn't say it's shifting east, but we're seeing more tornadoes to the east in the Tennessee-Ohio Valley, throughout Louisiana, and also in the Mississippi Delta region. That is why when you've got drought going throughout Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Texas, you're not going to get robust severe thunderstorms to form there. Their moisture source is really degraded. So that's why we've seen that kind of eastward transgression or transition of some of the severe weather. So that is an excellent question. Drought absolutely has so many impacts. We talked about, again, temperature, rain, and yes, even severe weather. It can make that fairly quiet as well. But yeah, I'm curious to see what we did do for October in terms of the average temperature. We'll see if we can get that number calculated.
No, I'm really struggling with the calculator there. Okay, I did get it calculated. So we were just about 4 to 5 degrees warmer. Just about that 4 to 5 range.
Honestly, I consider anything 2 to 2.5 degrees, away from the mean or the average is impressive.
Yes.
Because you remember, you're taking every high and every low temperature, you're combining them all together to get that average, and it takes a lot to do that. You're not talking about just one day being 80 degrees and, that pushes us up 4 degrees above normal. No, this is a whole month's worth of data that you're doing. So, wow.
We set a couple records in there too, I believe, in October.
Oh, we did, yeah. We hit 80 many times.
Yes.
Which was very impressive. Very, very impressive.
Haley from Eldridge, sounds familiar. Sounds familiar. Asked, did we already have our first frost?
We did. Frost is done, so we've already had that for the year. And also, we haven't talked about this yet, at least I haven't talked about it, but we have experienced our second summer already.
We have.
Yes, that used to be called Indian summer, but we've changed the verbiage a little bit and we now call it second summer. But yeah, that happens once you have your first period of frost and then a several day stretch of well above normal temperatures.
Yes.
And you remember we had the frost, then we went to 80 degrees.
I know.
For several days.
We were very up and down for that period of October, like 2-3 weeks. We had 80 in the forecast, and 2 days later it was like 48.
Yeah. I mean, it was a roller coaster ride. I felt like we were in a slingshot going up and down and all over the place. So yeah, frost is done. You will no longer see a frost or a freeze advisory for the rest of the year. The next time you'll see those is next spring.
They only do them once a year.
Yeah, one and done.
Down. All right, that's all the questions
Got a
we
couple
have
more to
for
wait for?
right
Okay.
now. So we're waiting for some more questions. Again,
Yeah.
text us 309-304-0888. Text us any question you have just about the weather.
Exactly.
Keeping it weather related.
Weather related only.
Nothing weird. You don't want Grandma Stutzke to hear anything crazy.
That's right. Again, is this something that you would ask your grandparents? Exactly. Should we go back to the tropics for a minute and see what else is going on?
Yeah, let's break that down a little bit more.
So we showed you Raphael and what it's
Raphael's
doing and where it's going to be going, the Gulf of Mexico. But interestingly enough, look at what's going on right here to the east of Raphael. Out in the Atlantic, other side of the Caribbean, you've got another area of disturbed weather, and you can actually see it right here. We'll make our graphics full screen so you can see it a little bit better. Area of thunderstorms well to the east of San Juan. That's going to be moving west. Now, right now, I don't think it's going to develop into anything too strong, but however, this could become our next tropical storm, which if you look at the naming list, takes us to the S's. This has been a busy, busy season. And I know, Peter, you've been looking up the statistics. How busy has this year been? When was the last time we were this busy?
Yeah, so the last time we went through every single name on the list was 2020.
So not that long ago.
That doesn't seem that long ago,
Yeah.
but guess how many times that's ever happened historically?
I'm going to guess 3.
2 times.
Oh.
Just 2020 and 2005, which was a very active season. I remember 2005. Florida had a very tough year with the hurricanes that year.
Didn't we go through the whole Greek alphabet? I think we went all the way through Zeta.
Yeah, I think we went through the whole Greek alphabet in 2005.
That was an insane year.
But we are currently, if we keep on getting these, even just the tropical storms develop, we will get through that list for just the 3rd time ever since they've released the naming list.
I mean, we knew it was going to be busy. It was the magnitude of the busiest that was just, how far were we going to take that limit?
Yes.
Whew, that is impressive.
And how late in the season we're seeing these too. We're still seeing this development, and typically we start to slow down a little bit more here.
Yeah, if you want to put an end date or an end stamp on hurricane season, it's usually the 1st of December. But as past history has told us, that doesn't mean that things can't brew and still happen. Yeah.
We got another question.
All right.
Jack from East Moline asks, are there ever winter tornadoes? Is there a minimum temperature that tornadoes need to live? I think you just did a little bit of research on it.
You are so right, yes. There are such things as snownadoes. This was actually an Ask Andrew question last winter. They do exist, and you don't really see them so much here. They exist in the mountainous regions.
Yes.
There's been a couple of videos of people that have been at ski resorts that have seen snow tornadoes form or snownadoes form. But you can get tornadoes any time of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And this is something we're going to talk about in our upcoming winter weather special. It's going to be called, I think, Winter Weather Impact.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's going to be found, guess what? Right here on the A+ app.
On that?
Yeah, so you can see more about that, and we're going to talk more about those wintertime tornadoes. And it wasn't that long ago. It was, I think, just a year ago or 2 years ago that we had tornadoes in December, January, and even February.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but when you're talking a tornado wrapped in snow, only has been observed in a mountainous region. And that makes sense because you're dealing with a difference in elevation. You've got these different air patterns that exist around the mountains themselves. We don't have a land feature that's really tall enough here in the Midwest to get that kind of a whirling going with any kind of organized snow squall or snow system, but that is a great question, and yes, they do exist.
They do exist.
Yeah. You can search Snownado on WQAD.com, by the way, and it'll pull that article up.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's even got a video in there.
Just gotta take a quick trip to Colorado. And
We should.
Yeah. WQAD goes storm tracking. Let's bring the beast out there. road tripping in the beast. Oh, that would be fun.
I hope our boss is listening. We're just throwing this out there.
Just an idea.
I think
Maybe
that
we
would
can
be cool.
ski, but just that's only if we have the time.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, check it out. Search Snownado. I'm actually going there right now.
Yes.
And this gives me an idea. I really need to get a link so that we can show the folks at home what I'm looking at on my computer. We'll think about that for future episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Weather Channel put out a video of the Snownado, and that video is still on this article. So WQAD.com, search for Snownado. It comes right up. It's right there. What a cool sight that is.
So cool.
Isn't that neat?
It's kind of like the fire tornadoes.
It is, but not as scary.
Not as scary.
I wouldn't want to be wrapped in a fire tornado.
No, I wouldn't either. That's one of the funniest thing is we went to multiple Beast events this year, or a Touch a Truck where we went to school visits. At 3 separate schools, fire tornado questions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, the kids, they're obsessed with that.
They're obsessed with it.
They are.
Love it.
I know. I thought
I
that
was
question
like,
too.
not what I would have expected. But I mean, we answered it. We know.
Yeah. The imagination that our kids have today. That's why I love the school visits too, because you never know what they're going to say or what they're going to ask.
No.
Most of the times you get a story, which we love the stories.
They're always so cute, though.
They're like, my mom told my dad to get in the basement and he said no. And I'm like, oh goodness. If you could hear the things your kids say, it's cute. It's adorable.
It's cute. It is adorable. We got another question here from Phil out in Muscatine. He says, hi, Andrew and Peter. Hey, Phil.
Hi.
What's your favorite topic to study in meteorology?
Oh my gosh.
Good one.
Go ahead. I'll let you go first.
Oh.
Unless you want me to go first. Because you're currently studying.
I am currently
You are
studying.
in school
I am
right
in
now.
school,
Yeah.
getting my master's, not master's, but certification degree from Mississippi State. Right
Yeah.
now. Oh, God, it's so hard.
There's so many good things.
There's so many good things. Snow, I think, just because of the difficulty and the complexity of forecasting that is going to be really interesting to dive more into.
Yes.
So I will have a specialized winter forecasting, snow forecasting class coming up here. That's going to be really fun. Then obviously I do love, just heat index and anything relating to the desert, just because that's what I grew up with.
Because that's where you're from.
That's where I'm from.
Yeah.
Love the haboobs, love the monsoon, studying how that can impact the desert climate has always been just interesting to me, because that's what
awesome.
blossomed to love in the first place.
Yeah. I love that answer. I love it. Mine's, I would have to say, a mix of tropical forecasting and, studying the complexity and the intensity of derechos, obviously, because of what happened a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, I should say. Tropical forecasting, though, if I could go back to school and emphasize and study one thing, I think it would be the tropical forecasting.
That'd be so fun to do.
We don't touch on it much in school.
No.
It's just a little sliver of it, but.
Yeah, luckily one of the 2 big professors I'm going to take a lot of classes from, he's a tornado chaser. I mean, not tornado, a hurricane chaser. Yes. And he's been in the eye, I believe, of 6 hurricanes, 7 hurricanes. He hasn't gotten a Cat 5, but he's gotten a Cat 4 hurricane eye before, which is obscene to me.
Isn't that
Yeah, yeah.
You told me that, and I'm like,
I
I'm
was
so
like,
jealous.
So cool. So cool. Would be so fun to do.
I mean, I would not want to be in that strong of a hurricane. And obviously, we don't want to wish, death and damage and destructive on anyone. But to be able to go inside of one of those and just experience that as a meteorologist it's a special thing.
It's a special thing.
Yeah.
It's like Reed Timmer.
Exactly. Yeah. He goes in and harnesses
just
the
goes
power
in.
of the tornadoes,
Oh,
and
yes.
yeah,
It's crazy.
he's a character. But we love him anyway.
We love him anyway. We always will.
Look at that! It's 9:29.
Wow, it goes by so quick.
I know. Another episode in the books, guys. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us this morning. So glad to have you back with us.
I know I missed it.
My voice thanks you too, by the way.
Good.
So we're going to do this same thing as we get into next Wednesday. And we do this every Wednesday. And I happen to be off next Wednesday. So guess what? The weekend crew's taking over Ask Andrew next Wednesday.
Yes.
Right here on the WQAD 8+ app, 9 a.m. Wednesday morning. I will see you back on air for GMQC at 11. Have a great day, Quad Cities.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 8+ app everywhere you stream.